Today we're going to compare the Huawei P30, the regular P30, not the Pro, versus the Reno 2. And it's cool that the Reno 2 does have a cool shark fin camera, which is a little bit different, and it's a quad system in the back versus a triple on the Huawei P30. So I just turned on the bokeh mode on the Oppo Reno 2, which is pretty cool, but I know it will have some trouble around my hairline and around my ears. So it's a pretty cool effect, but I don't think it's something everyone will use all the time. So this is the low light example of the front facing camera, and I gotta say I do like the Oppo Reno camera UI a little bit better just because of where they place the focal length button, because I can change focal lengths with any of my hands because it's right in the center, whereas with the Huawei P30 it's on the right side, so if I use it with my left hand it's gonna be hard to reach. Let's start off with the portrait mode, and I'm gonna say that there's no clear-cut winner on which one is better. On the Huawei, I do like how I can just point shoot, and generally the cutout looks really good. On the Oppo Reno 2, it's like the iPhone where it tells you that you're too close or you're too far, so you have to do a lot more shuffling rather than like the Huawei where you just point shoot and it works. On the P30 in aperture mode, it will let you do 2x and 3x, so if your subject is too far, you can actually zoom in or get a closer shot without moving. The biggest con for me on the P30 is the inconsistency of colors. Sometimes it comes out too green, too red, too saturated, too yellow. I wouldn't know. It's always different. Especially when you're shooting people, it's really frustrating when it's really green because it's obvious that the colors aren't gonna look really good and the picture is just really off. For the front facing camera, I would give it to the Huawei P30 just because it does keep control more on the highlights and the skin tones does look better as well. Now when it gets really dark, the Oppo Reno 2 will tell you that it needs more light, so you can't really use portrait mode. On the Huawei, like I said before, easily just point shoot and it works. Now for indoors, let's say we're eating something, there's food on the table or drinks or whatever, I would say that the Huawei is just more better or more flexible just because you can zoom in just in case, whereas on Oppo Reno 2 you're stuck with one focal length, so you would have to move your hands in to get a closer shot. And both phones do have macro mode, so that's something to consider if you do like shooting in that type of way. So how about the everyday casual use of these camera phones? Both can go ultra wide and they can zoom in pretty well. The Huawei does have an upper hand just because they can go up to 30x, but then I would say it's not that useful for picture taking. I would rather use that 30x just to see a sign that I can't see from far away. For the colors on the Oppo Reno 2 is much more natural, it's much more flat and is consistent. And sometimes the Reno 2 can come out too saturated, which is once in a while, but for the most part, the colors do look the same throughout the images I take. So I would prefer the colors coming out from the Reno 2 just because I kind of know what to expect. Like I said before, Huawei is really inconsistent and I don't know what I'm gonna get. And also the P30, sometimes it can be too over processed, so it can look like almost cartoony, so that's some issues that I know people always complain about after taking their pictures on a Huawei P30. For camera modes, the Oppo Reno 2 is fairly simple, nothing stands out, so it's kind of like the standard bunch of modes you have on a lot of other phones. The P30 does have a lot of other modes to choose from, so if you are more of the creative type, then you would feel more comfortable using the Huawei versus the Reno 2, which is more of a phone where you take it out, take your picture, and move on. For low light situations, I would grab the Oppo Reno 2 just because, again, more neutral. For example, these pictures here, why is the P30 so blue? The sky is really blue, it's clearly sunset, so it should be orange like the Oppo Reno 2. And these leaves on the ground, it should be brown. The Oppo Reno 2 does represent it really well, closest to the eye, whereas on the P30, it's everywhere. It's too yellow, it's too green. It looks really unnatural. Both of these phones do have night mode, and in some sort of way it does get a bit brighter. The only downside that I found out on the Oppo Reno 2 is that you can't really do night shot or night mode on the ultra wide angle lens if it's too dark. When there's enough light, sure, you can see a bit of a difference, but when it's like super dark with no light, it won't do anything. On the Huawei, the night mode works as expected. And using the normal mode, sometimes it works just as good or even better than the night mode. Because sometimes from my previous test, the P30 night mode turns out to be too green. Moving on to video is a clear example here that the Oppo Reno 2 does a way better job in terms of stabilization from the main camera lens, especially the ultra wide angle lens, and even 2x for fun. The stabilization here on the Oppo Reno 2 is way much better. On the P30, you can see a lot of more handheld movements, sometimes weird jerkiness happens, but a lot of that up and down movement from natural walking, you can see a lot more of that. For the colors, I would say the Huawei P30 is much more warmer versus the neutral colors on the Oppo Reno 2. And the biggest con for the Reno 2 is that once you switch away from the main camera lens, you're no longer shooting in 4K 30. So when you switch to ultra wide angle lens or ultra steady mode, it's gonna auto switch to 1080. And the most annoying thing is, if you go back to your main camera lens, it stays at 1080. So you would have to manually go to settings every time to switch it to 4K. When it gets really dark out, that's when you can see a lot more micro jitters. I would assume the Reno 2 would show more just because it's working harder to stabilize the footage, and of course it does better in stabilization, so that's why I thought I would see more micro jitters. But then again, looking at these two side by side, the Oppo Reno 2 is doing better than the P30. Now, I would not use ultra wide angle lens to record video in really dark situations, but this is a nice example to see the hard steps I take. You can see a lot more wobble and the harsher jerks on the P30 than the Oppo Reno 2. So the Reno 2 is really easy to use and the colors are really consistent and neutral, so it's really safe. On the Huawei P30, you get a lot of modes and the better experience in portrait mode. What is really annoying to me is the colors on a Huawei, so you don't know what you're gonna get. It could be red, green, over processed, over saturated, so it's kind of like a wild card and a lot of people may not like that. For the Reno 2, the weakest point is the video side of things. It's not 4K all the way, which is kind of standard in a lot of phones out there, but for the price, I would say it's still not too bad. So that is my comparison between these two phones. Let me know which one you would pick or which one won. And if you want to check them out, I do have links down below. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Instagram. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.